The palace of Queen Lyra stood on the top of a jagged mountain, its towers gleaming in the twin suns of the planet Orvella. The walls were polished crystal, reflecting the orange and violet light of the sky. Courtyards filled with floating gardens and streams of shimmering water spread around the palace, creating a calm, beautiful scene. The citizens of Orvella often said that the palace was not just a place of power, it was a symbol of hope and strength. Inside the grand halls, alien Princess Lyra walked with quiet confidence. She was tall and elegant, with long silver hair and eyes that glowed faintly violet. Today was important. Today she would sit upon the throne for the first time as the official ruler of her people. Courtiers, advisors, and guards filled the hall, whispering quietly and bowing as she passed. Lyra's steps were slow and deliberate. She felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. Being a princess was one thing, but being a ruler, she knew it would be far more difficult. Her advisors whispered constantly, suggesting every decision, every movement she should make. She had learned to listen carefully, but now she felt the weight of her own thoughts pressing on her. "I will lead with wisdom," she said to herself, her voice steady. "I will not let anyone control me. My people will see strength in me." Outside the palace gates, rumors swirled. A human soldier had entered Orvella. The aliens regarded humans with suspicion. They were strong, unpredictable, and cunning. Some said they could survive situations no other species could. Others claimed humans often acted with strange, almost reckless courage. Many in Lyra's court felt uneasy. "Your Highness," said one of her advisors, a tall alien with skin like polished jade, "the humans are unpredictable. This soldier, he is said to have defeated enemies no one else could. Perhaps we should prepare a welcome or a defense." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. She was proud of her heritage and her people, but she was not afraid. "I will meet him myself," she said firmly. "I want to see this human. Let him enter the palace. No one stops a guest without reason." The guards outside shifted nervously. Humans were different. They walked with a kind of calm that suggested confidence, not arrogance. Their eyes could be sharp, reading people and situations in ways aliens often did not expect. Marcus, the human soldier, approached the palace gates without hesitation. His uniform was plain compared to the extravagant robes of the aliens, but it was clean, functional, and had the insignia of his fleet. His dark hair was short, his jaw firm, and his posture straight. The gates opened with a soft hum and he walked in. The sound of his boots echoed lightly across the crystal floors. Courtiers gasped, whispering among themselves. They had heard stories of human courage, but to see a human walk into the heart of their palace, it was different. Lyra watched from the throne room balcony. She expected fear, perhaps anger or even defiance from the human, but Marcus simply walked with calm confidence. There was no fear, no aggression, just presence. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt a strange curiosity. She could not look away. The human soldier stopped in the center of the hall. He bowed slightly, not in a showy way, but with respect. "Princess Lyra," he said in clear, smooth tones. "I am Captain Marcus of the United Earth Fleet. I come as a representative of humanity. My mission is peaceful. I seek only to speak with you and ensure the safety of both our peoples." The hall fell silent. Courtiers looked at each other, unsure of how to react. A human speaking politely yet firmly was not something they had expected. Lyra stepped forward from the balcony, her silver hair catching the light. "Captain Marcus," she said, her voice soft but strong. "Welcome to my palace. You speak boldly for a guest of unknown origin." Marcus nodded slightly. "I speak only the truth, Princess. I have traveled far, and I do not come empty-handed. I bring a message of peace, but I am ready to act if my presence is challenged." Lyra's eyes studied him carefully. Most aliens would have flaunted power, weapons, or authority. But this human, he relied on presence, on clarity, on calm courage. Something about him made her heart beat faster, though she did not understand why. "Very well," she said. "You will not face my weapons today, Captain. You will meet my council. But be warned, my advisors are cautious of humans. They will test you." Marcus inclined his head. "I would expect nothing less, Princess." The council room was vast, filled with alien advisors sitting in concentric circles. Holographic screens displayed data about human history, military records, and previous encounters with alien species. The advisors began to ask questions, some simple, some complex. "How do we know we can trust you?" one elder asked. His voice was sharp, almost like metal grinding. Marcus replied calmly, "Trust is earned, not demanded. I will prove my intentions by my actions." Another advisor, younger and more skeptical, leaned forward. "Can you survive the dangers of our palace, human?" "Many have tried and failed." Marcus smiled faintly. "I have survived many dangers. I do not claim to be invincible, but I have learned to adapt," the council murmured. Some were impressed, others wary. Lyra observed quietly, fascinated. Humans were unlike any creature she had known. They did not rely solely on strength, cunning, or status. They relied on courage, on quick thinking, and on moral clarity. And somehow Marcus seemed to embody all three. As the council continued their questioning, Lyra noticed small things. Marcus helped a nervous servant who dropped a tray of cups. He spoke to the guards politely, acknowledging their presence without condescension. He did not seek to dominate the room, but his confidence made him impossible to ignore. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had always known her throne represented power, authority, and duty. But seeing Marcus, she wondered if power could also be measured in other ways. Strength of character, calm courage, and respect for others. The council finally ended their questioning, though some members remained skeptical. Marcus had passed their tests not through showy displays, but by remaining steady, honest, and capable. Lyra approached him, her steps echoing in the grand hall. "You are unlike any human or alien I have met," she said softly. "You do not flaunt your strength, yet it is clear you possess it. I find myself curious." Marcus inclined his head, still composed. "Curiosity is a good thing, Princess. It opens minds. It allows understanding." For a moment, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. Her throne, her palace, her advisors. None of them seemed as important as this human standing before her. She realized that courage, intelligence, and integrity could shine brighter than jewels, towers, or ancient traditions. The sun began to set outside, casting a warm orange glow through the palace windows. Lyra turned slightly, as if looking at the horizon, then back at Marcus. "Tomorrow, Captain, you will face the palace trials," she said. "These tests are not meant to harm you. They are meant to see if you can survive our ways and perhaps earn the respect of my people." Marcus nodded. "I welcome the challenge, Princess." Lyra studied him for a long moment. She could feel the shift inside her, the quiet recognition that her role as a ruler might change because of this human. He had entered her palace, and already the throne felt different. The night settled over Orvella, the twin moons rising in the sky. The palace, once silent with anticipation, now seemed alive with possibilities. Lyra returned to her chambers, her mind racing. She had expected a human soldier to be merely a visitor, a curiosity, or perhaps a danger. But Marcus was none of those things. He was extraordinary. And deep inside, she wondered, could one human truly change the way she ruled? Could he make her see that leadership was more than ceremonies, advisors, and tradition? Tomorrow would reveal much. But tonight, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. A strange mix of excitement and admiration. The human soldier had entered, and already even the alien princess began to forget her throne. The morning sun shone over the palace of Orvella, painting the crystal towers in gold and amber. Birds with translucent wings flitted over the floating gardens, their calls echoing softly through the halls. Inside the palace, the air was thick with anticipation. Today, Captain Marcus would face the palace trials, a series of challenges designed to test strength, intelligence, and courage. Lyra stood on the balcony overlooking the central courtyard. Her silver hair caught the light, and her violet eyes reflected both curiosity and excitement. She had watched Marcus carefully since his arrival. Every movement, every word showed a calm confidence that few aliens possessed. "Princess," said the advisor Eldar, stepping forward, his voice formal but cautious. "Are you certain it is wise to allow a human to face our trials? These challenges are not easy. They have tested our bravest warriors, and some have failed." Lyra turned her gaze toward him. "I am aware, Eldar, but Marcus is no ordinary human. I will watch him myself." "Let him proceed," Eldar bowed. "As you wish, Your Highness." The courtyard was vast, filled with ancient mechanisms and intricate defenses. The trials were not merely physical. They tested wit, speed, and adaptability. Statues of past rulers lined the walls, watching silently as Marcus stepped into the first challenge, a maze of shifting platforms and hidden traps. Marcus paused, studying the path ahead. Unlike the aliens who relied on tradition and strict rules, he trusted observation and instinct. With careful steps, he moved forward, avoiding the traps with a mixture of agility and foresight. He noticed small details, the faint markings on the floor, the subtle hum of mechanisms, the way shadows fell across the moving platforms. From her balcony, Lyra watched intently. She had never seen anyone navigate the trials with such calm. Other warriors would have rushed, relying on brute strength or sheer speed. Marcus moved with thought and precision, and each step seemed to inspire a silent admiration in her. The first trial ended when Marcus reached the center of the maze. A low hum signaled completion, and the gates to the next challenge opened. The courtyard buzzed with whispers from the council members. Some nodded quietly in approval, others looked skeptical, but Lyra's attention was solely on him. The second trial was a test of strategy. Marcus entered a chamber filled with complex machinery and energy grids. He had to guide a floating crystal from one end of the room to the other without touching the grids, which could emit a disabling pulse. Many aliens relied on strength or specialized devices to manipulate the crystals, but Marcus observed carefully. He noticed that the grids had a pattern or rhythm. By timing his movements and using the edges of the chamber, he moved the crystal steadily toward its goal. One of the younger advisors whispered, "He's human, yet he adapts faster than any of us would." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. "Indeed," she murmured to herself. "He thinks differently. His mind is remarkable." The third trial tested courage. Marcus had to cross a high, narrow bridge suspended over a glowing pit. The pit's depths were unknown, filled with shifting lights and strange sounds that unnerved most aliens. Many would freeze, hesitant to take the first step. But Marcus walked forward steadily. He placed one foot after the other, his hands steady, his eyes fixed on the other side. A gust of wind swept through the chamber, and the bridge trembled. Some council members gasped. Marcus did not falter. He adjusted his balance and continued, reaching the other side without hesitation. Lyra held her breath as he stepped onto solid ground. She had expected courage, yes, but not such composed bravery. Humans were often unpredictable, and she had feared recklessness. But Marcus' courage was quiet, controlled, and inspiring. The final trial combined skill, intelligence, and compassion. A group of palace servants were trapped behind a failing barrier that threatened to seal them inside a chamber. Marcus had to navigate a network of controls and puzzles to release them. He studied the panel carefully, noting the symbols and patterns. He moved with precision, guiding the servants safely out. When the last one stepped free, Marcus paused to ensure none had been harmed or frightened. He spoke to them gently, offering reassurance and a kind word. Lyra watched, her heart racing. Strength alone was not enough to impress her. Intelligence alone could not sway her. But courage combined with kindness, precision, and moral clarity, these traits moved her in a way no alien had ever done. As Marcus finished the trials, the council members murmured among themselves. Some were clearly impressed, others still wary. Eldar stepped forward, his voice respectful but cautious. "Captain Marcus, you have completed the trials in a manner none have expected. You possess not only courage but intelligence and adaptability. You have our respect." Marcus nodded politely. "Thank you, Eldar. Respect is earned as trust is. I am here to show both, not demand them." Lyra descended from her balcony and approached Marcus. Her steps were measured, her presence commanding yet gentle. When she reached him, she studied his face closely. The sunlight reflected off his uniform, and she realized how different he was from anyone she had ever known. "You have done well," she said softly. "I have watched many warriors in my lifetime, but none have impressed me as you have. Not with strength alone, not with skill alone, but with courage, thought, and compassion." Marcus inclined his head. "I am honored, Princess. I have learned from my experiences, not from arrogance. I try to act with reason and care." Lyra felt a stirring inside her that she could not name. Her advisors had always told her that rulers should rely on power and tradition. Yet here stood a human, a stranger from another world who had shown her something new, something important. As they walked back to the palace, Marcus helped a young servant who stumbled on the steps. He did not ignore her fear or rush past. He bent down, offering a hand and a reassuring smile. Lyra watched, and a faint smile touched her lips. She realized that leadership might be more than commanding from a throne. Perhaps it was also about guidance, protection, and moral clarity, traits she had seen in Marcus. Later in the council chamber, Marcus addressed the advisors. "The trials are not meant to test strength alone," he said. "They are meant to measure understanding, adaptation, and courage. A leader's success comes not from tradition, but from action guided by wisdom and respect for others." Some council members frowned. Others nodded slowly. Lyra stood at the back, her arms crossed, eyes thoughtful. She had heard many speeches in her life, but Marcus spoke with conviction, with honesty, and with a quiet authority that drew attention. After the council meeting, Lyra walked with Marcus in the palace gardens. The air was cool and the flowers glowed softly in the evening light. "You have done more than impress the council," she said. "You have impressed me. I do not fully understand it, but your presence changes how I see things. Leadership, courage, even life itself." Marcus looked at her, calm and steady. "I am not here to change you, Princess. I am here to act with honor and courage. If it inspires others, that is enough." Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. She had always valued strength and tradition, but now she wondered if courage, intelligence, and kindness could be stronger than any rule or weapon. The night settled over Orvella, the moons rising in the sky. Lanterns floated over the gardens, casting soft light over the palace paths. Lyra and Marcus stood together, silent for a moment, each observing the other. For Lyra, the human soldier was no longer merely a guest. He was a challenge to her expectations, a reminder that strength could take many forms and perhaps a guide toward a new way of leading her people. For Marcus, the princess was more than a ruler. She was intelligent, perceptive, and brave in her own way. He had come as a soldier, yet he found himself inspired by her courage and dignity. Neither spoke for a long time. Words were not necessary. Both understood that something had shifted, the rules of power, the expectations of leadership, and even the quiet rhythms of their hearts. And in that moment, Lyra knew one thing clearly. The human soldier had entered her world, faced her trials, and left an impression deeper than she could have imagined. Even her throne, the symbol of her power, felt less important than the presence of this human who walked among her people with courage, wisdom, and quiet strength. The palace seemed alive with possibilities. Challenges awaited them both, political, social, and perhaps even personal, but for now the first step had been taken. Marcus had proven himself not just to the council, but to the princess herself, and Lyra, for the first time, realized that sometimes the greatest strength came not from tradition, nor from power, but from courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act with honor in a world full of uncertainty. Tomorrow, the next trials would begin. But tonight, as the wind whispered through the gardens and the stars sparkled in the twin moon's glow, Lyra understood that the human soldier had already changed something fundamental. Her heart beat a little faster, her mind a little clearer, and even her throne, her symbol of ultimate power, felt like something less important than the lessons she had already learned from a human stranger. The sky over Orvella darkened in the afternoon, twin clouds casting long shadows across the palace gardens. Normally, the palace was a place of serenity, where the citizens admired the elegance of their rulers and the beauty of the floating gardens. But today a tense energy lingered in the air. Rumors had reached Lyra that a rival faction of aliens, resentful of her rising influence and uneasy with a human soldier at her side, were planning an attack. Lyra walked through the hallways of the palace, her long silver hair trailing behind her. She felt the familiar weight of her role as princess and now as the ruler in training. But beside her walked Marcus, calm and steady, ready for whatever danger might arrive. While the palace advisors whispered, Marcus listened quietly, observing every detail, the positions of guards, the layout of defensive turrets, the energy shields protecting the walls. "You think they will attack soon?" Lyra asked softly, her violet eyes scanning the horizon. Marcus nodded. "It is likely. Factions that oppose your rule will strike when they think you are least prepared, but we can be ready. Strategy, timing, and focus can turn any situation in our favor." Lyra felt a surge of confidence as she walked beside him. For the first time, she realized that strength alone, her throne, her advisors, her armies, might not be enough. What mattered was the mind behind the action, the courage to make decisions, and the ability to inspire others. Marcus had shown her that. By late afternoon, the first signs of the attack appeared. Drones shaped like jagged stars descended from the sky, scanning for weaknesses in the palace defenses. The rival faction's ships hovered on the outskirts, waiting for an opening. The palace guards tensed, unsure how to respond. Marcus quickly stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Guards, follow my lead. Focus on coordination, not panic. Use the energy shields as barriers. Observe the drones and anticipate their moves. We will not let them breach the palace." The guards, inspired by his confidence, fell into position. Even the veteran commanders, who had faced countless attacks before, found themselves adjusting to the human soldier's strategy. Marcus combined quick thinking with careful observation, directing troops with precision. Lyra watched him in action, her pulse quickening. She had expected courage, but she had not expected such leadership. He moved through the chaos like he belonged, calmly analyzing every threat and offering solutions that were effective and unexpected. The first wave of drones descended upon the palace. Energy blasts lit the sky, striking walls and towers. Guards fired back, but some drones moved too fast, dodging their attacks with surprising agility. Marcus noticed a pattern in their movement. "Aim for the joints! The armor is weakest there!" he shouted. The guards adjusted, and the first drones fell. Lyra felt a thrill of pride, not just in her palace, but in this human beside her. She realized that Marcus's presence was more than a comfort. It was a force multiplier. His tactics inspired the soldiers, gave them confidence, and turned fear into action. But the danger was far from over. A squadron of heavily armored ships descended toward the main gates, threatening to break through the palace defenses. Lyra's heart beat faster. If the gates fell, the palace would be vulnerable. Marcus turned to her. "Princess, we need to coordinate. You know the palace layout better than anyone. Guide the defenses while I lead the counterattack." Lyra nodded, her fear tempered by determination. "I will. Lead us, Captain." Together they moved through the palace, issuing commands, inspiring the soldiers, and activating defenses. Marcus climbed to a vantage point and directed the use of energy turrets, combining human tactics with alien technology. Lyra moved among the guards, boosting morale and ensuring that every strategic position was manned. The battle raged for hours. Explosions rocked the palace grounds and smoke curled from damaged walls. Yet with Marcus's guidance, the defenders held their ground. Guards who had once doubted him now followed his orders without question. Marcus fought alongside them when necessary, moving with agility and precision that inspired awe. At one point, a bridge connecting two palace towers began to collapse under enemy fire. A group of young guards was trapped. Marcus did not hesitate. He ran forward, jumping across unstable platforms, and helped the guards to safety. Lyra's breath caught as she watched him risk himself for others. His courage was not reckless, it was calculated, brave, and selfless. When the rival faction realized their assault was failing, they launched a desperate attempt to breach the palace's inner gates. Marcus anticipated their move and redirected the palace energy barriers, creating a trap. The attacking ships collided with the shield and were disabled, leaving them vulnerable to counterattacks. Within moments, the remaining forces were forced to retreat. The courtyard was filled with smoke, scorched earth, and the scent of energy discharge. The palace guards, though exhausted, cheered. They had won, not just because of their strength, but because of Marcus's leadership. Lyra descended from her observation point, her hair dusted with soot, her eyes shining. She approached Marcus, who was checking on the guards and injured personnel. You saved the palace," she said, her voice filled with admiration, "not just with skill but with your mind. And your courage. It is unlike anything I have seen." Marcus turned, a faint smile on his lips. "The palace belongs to your people, Princess. I only help them defend what is theirs. Courage and strategy are tools. Anyone can learn them if they act with clarity and focus." Lyra shook her head, her hair falling around her shoulders. "No, Marcus. What you did, it is more than tools. You inspired everyone. You made them believe in themselves, and you made me believe in something new." For a moment, the chaos of battle faded. The ruined palace seemed quiet in the aftermath. Lyra realized that she had been watching a soldier, a guest, a human stranger. But what she had truly seen was strength of character, a courage that transcended fear, and a clarity of mind that even the most experienced aliens could not match. The council members approached, their faces a mixture of relief and astonishment. Eldar spoke first. Princess Lyra, Captain Marcus, your guidance, strategy, and bravery have turned what could have been disaster into victory. You have our gratitude. Marcus nodded politely. I am honored, Eldar, but the credit goes to everyone here. We acted together as a team. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that Marcus had shown more than skill in battle. He had shown her a lesson in leadership. It was not only the throne, the palace, or the soldiers that made a ruler strong. It was the courage to act wisely, the intelligence to see opportunities, and the compassion to protect those who depended on you. Later, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Lyra and Marcus walked among the glowing flowers. The damage from the battle was evident, but life persisted. Streams of water flowed gently and the wind rustled the leaves. You have changed how I see my role, Lyra said softly. I have always believed that ruling meant commanding from a throne, relying on tradition and power. But now I see it differently. I see that true leadership is about courage, wisdom, and the strength to protect and inspire. Marcus looked at her, his dark eyes calm and thoughtful. Leadership is not about fear or power, Princess. It is about understanding, acting with honor, and guiding others toward the right choices. You already have what it takes. My role is only to help you see it. Lyra's violet eyes met his, and for a moment the palace, the throne, and the court all seemed to disappear. All that mattered was the human soldier who had faced impossible challenges, risked himself for her people, and changed the way she thought about strength and leadership. As night fell over Orvella, the palace was quiet. The moons rose, casting silver light over the floating gardens. The citizens looked up at the towers, seeing the light in their princess's eyes. They did not yet know the full story of the battle, but they would come to admire the human soldier whose courage had saved the palace. Lyra remained on the balcony, staring at Marcus below, who was checking the palace defenses one last time. She realized that the man was not just a warrior. He was a teacher, a guide, and perhaps something more. Her heart beat faster, but she did not try to hide it. For the first time, she understood that admiration could exist alongside respect, and that even a princess could learn from someone unexpected. The night was quiet, but a sense of change hung in the air. Marcus had proven himself not just in trials or strategy, but in the crucible of real danger. He had inspired confidence, courage, and trust. And Lyra, the young princess who had once believed only in her throne and tradition, had begun to see a new path, one shaped by wisdom, action, and the human soldier who walked among her people with honor. And as she looked at him standing tall against the starlit sky, Lyra realized one truth that made her heart skip a beat. The human soldier had entered her world, faced the palace trials of life and battle, and already, even the princess had begun to forget her throne. The palace of Orvella slowly recovered from the battle. Cracks in the walls were being repaired, guards patrolled with renewed purpose, and the floating gardens were carefully tended to restore their former beauty. Life had returned to the palace, but the tension that had settled over the court during the attack lingered. Some advisors whispered that Lyra's admiration for the human soldier, Captain Marcus, had changed her judgment. Lyra, however, could not ignore the truth she had begun to feel. Marcus was no ordinary visitor. His courage, intelligence, and calm leadership had shown her a different way to see strength and rulership. He had saved the palace, inspired the guards, and even challenged the traditions that had long guided her decisions. In the quiet of the palace corridors, Lyra found herself walking with Marcus. The sunlight poured through the crystal walls, illuminating the floating gardens outside. Birds sang, their wings catching the light like tiny prisms. Lyra's voice was soft but deliberate. Marcus, she began, you have done more than I could have imagined. You have shown courage, yes, but also patience, kindness, and wisdom. I find myself thinking differently about everything. Marcus looked at her calmly. That is a good thing, Princess. Understanding comes from experience, from seeing situations clearly, and from acting with honesty and care. You have all of these qualities yourself. You only needed to see them in practice. Lyra's violet eyes lingered on him, studying his calm expression, his posture, and the quiet confidence in his presence. She realized that she was no longer just thinking about rulership in terms of orders and traditions. She was thinking about strategy, morality, and courage in a way that she had never considered. The two walked to the palace courtyard where the gardens were being repaired. Marcus knelt to examine a damaged pathway, gently adjusting floating stones that had fallen from the previous night's battle. Lyra watched him, amazed at how he could move with precision, focus, and care all at once. "You have a way of seeing things," Lyra said quietly. "I do not understand it fully, but it makes sense. You see paths others cannot, solutions others miss. It is extraordinary." Marcus looked up and smiled faintly. "Sometimes, Princess, the best solutions come not from strength or tradition, but from observation and careful thought. One must trust both the mind and the instincts." Lyra nodded. Her admiration for Marcus was growing beyond the battlefield. She realized that he had qualities she wanted to understand, perhaps even emulate. His courage had inspired her. His wisdom had guided her. His calmness had reassured her. And she could not deny that his presence stirred something deep within her, something she had never felt before. Meanwhile, the palace advisors were growing uneasy. They whispered among themselves about Lyra's fascination with a human. Some warned that she was losing focus on her duties, that trusting an outsider could weaken her rule. Others admired Marcus's influence and believed his guidance could strengthen the princess and the palace. Lyra noticed the tension, but remained firm. "I will not rule based on fear or tradition alone," she said to herself. "I will rule based on courage, wisdom, and action. And if Marcus's presence teaches me that, then it is a gift, not a threat." Over the next few days, Marcus worked closely with Lyra and the palace guards. He helped reorganize defenses, improve training, and establish better communication systems. The soldiers, inspired by his calm authority, quickly adopted his methods. Even the most skeptical advisors began to recognize his value, though some still muttered in disapproval. During a quiet evening, Lyra invited Marcus to walk through the inner gardens. Lanterns floated above the paths, casting soft light over flowers that glowed in the moonlight. The air was cool and fragrant, and the palace was calm after the previous chaos. "Marcus," Lyra began, her voice hesitant, "do you think a ruler should always follow tradition?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Tradition can guide, but it should not bind. Leaders must act with wisdom, courage, and morality. If tradition supports those things, it is useful. If it hinders them, it should be reconsidered." Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She realized how much she had been confined by expectations, protocols, and rituals. Marcus's presence reminded her that true leadership required judgment, courage, and an open mind. As they walked further into the gardens, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Lyra stopped near a small fountain, the water shimmering under the moons. "I have begun to see things differently," she admitted. "The palace, the throne, they are symbols, yes, but they are not the source of true strength. Perhaps strength lies in action, in courage, and in the people who inspire us." Marcus smiled. "You already have that strength, Princess. I only help you recognize it." Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes reflecting moonlight. A sense of calm and admiration filled her heart. She realized that Marcus had not only changed her view of leadership, but also stirred feelings she could not yet name. The human soldier was no longer just a guest or a protector. He was a presence she wanted near her, a guide, and perhaps even a friend. But the palace was not without danger. News arrived that rival factions were planning another strike, seeking to exploit any perceived weakness. This time the threat was not immediate, but political pressure was mounting. Advisors warned Lyra that the human soldier's presence could be seen as favoritism or a breach of protocol. Lyra faced a choice. She could follow the advice of her advisors, dismissing Marcus's influence and relying on tradition, or she could trust her instincts, relying on the lessons she had learned from Marcus: courage, intelligence, and honor. "I will not abandon what is right," she said to herself. "And if that means standing with Marcus, then so be it." The next day, Marcus and Lyra worked together to prepare the palace for potential threats. He trained the guards in strategies they had never seen before, combining human tactics with alien technology. Lyra observed, absorbing every lesson, thinking carefully about how she could apply these strategies herself. During a break, Lyra approached Marcus. "You have taught me much," she said. "Not only about battle, but about leadership, courage, and trust. I feel I can face challenges I once thought impossible." Marcus nodded. "Leadership is not about fear or domination, Princess. It is about responsibility, courage, and guiding others to the best decisions. You have all of that. I am only here to help you see it clearly." Lyra's heart quickened. She realized that his presence had changed her, not only as a ruler but as a person. She admired him, trusted him, and felt a bond that went beyond words. It was as if he had unlocked a part of her she had never known existed, a part that could act with courage, inspire others, and embrace change. As night fell, the palace glowed under the twin moons. Lyra and Marcus walked through the gardens once more, silent in their shared understanding. The flowers glowed softly, the streams whispered, and the air was calm. The world felt different with Marcus near, safer and more alive. In that quiet moment, Lyra realized something profound. She had been trained to rule with authority, with tradition, with ceremony, but Marcus had shown her a new way. Strength was not just power. Leadership was not just rules. True strength was courage, wisdom, integrity, and the ability to inspire others, and Marcus embodied all of it. Lyra stopped walking and looked at him. "Marcus," she said softly, "I do not fully understand my feelings yet. But I know this, I trust you. I admire you, and I want to learn from you." Marcus met her gaze calmly, a faint smile on his lips. "You already know more than you realize, Princess. Courage, judgment, and care are within you. I only help you see them clearly." The bond between them grew stronger with every passing day. They shared ideas, strategies, and quiet moments. The palace, once a place of rigid protocol, became a space where courage and wisdom were valued above tradition alone. The citizens and guards, inspired by the human soldier, began to see him as a protector, a guide, and a symbol of hope. Lyra felt a quiet joy she had never known. The human soldier had entered her world, faced her trials, defended her palace, and taught her lessons that no book, advisor, or tradition ever could. And in the quiet of the night, she realized that she was not just learning to rule. She was learning to see the world through the eyes of courage, honor, and wisdom. The palace had survived battle, political tension, and the uncertainty of leadership. But the greatest change was not in its walls or guards, it was in Lyra herself. And at the center of that change was Marcus, the human soldier who had shown her that true strength was more than power. More than tradition, it was courage, integrity, and the bonds we build along the way. As the moons shone above the palace towers, Lyra felt a sense of calm determination. Challenges would come again, political rivals, external threats, and the burdens of leadership. But now, with Marcus at her side, she knew that she could face them, not just with authority but with courage, intelligence, and a new understanding of what it truly meant to lead. And in the quiet of the gardens, under the glowing lanterns and stars, Lyra realized another truth. The human soldier had entered her life, and in doing so had changed her forever. Even her throne, which once defined her entirely, now seemed less important than the bond she had begun to form. With courage, with wisdom, and with a human she could trust completely. The twin suns of Orvella rose slowly, casting golden and violet light across the crystal towers of the palace. Today was not like any other day. The Galactic Council, a powerful body that oversaw disputes between planets and species, had sent representatives to observe Princess Lyra's rule. They had heard of the recent conflicts, the human soldier, and the changes in palace leadership. Some whispered that the council doubted her ability to govern with strength and wisdom. Lyra walked through the halls with Marcus at her side. She felt calm, yet her pulse carried the weight of responsibility. The council's judgment could change the fate of her people. But Marcus's presence reminded her that true leadership was not about tradition alone, but about courage, clarity, and action. "Princess," Marcus said softly, "remember that they judge based on what they see. Your strength is in your actions, not in the throne alone. Show them the leader you truly are." Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath. "I will. With your guidance, I know I can face this." The grand hall where the council would convene was vast, with towering crystal walls and floors that reflected the light of the suns. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats. Their expressions varied, curious, skeptical, and some openly dismissive. Whispers moved like wind through the chamber as Lyra stepped forward. "Princess Lyra," a council elder said, his voice sharp. "We have observed reports of recent conflicts in the presence of a human in your palace. How do you justify your actions, and how can we trust that your rule is stable?" Lyra held her head high. "I understand your concern. The human soldier, Captain Marcus, has assisted in defending the palace. training the guards and guiding our strategies. His presence is not a threat. It is a demonstration of courage, intelligence, and cooperation. Leadership is not about fear or tradition alone. It is about courage, wisdom, and the ability to inspire and protect one's people. Murmurs filled the hall. Some council members exchanged uncertain glances while others remained silent, clearly impressed by her composure. Lyra's violet eyes scanned the room, landing on skeptical faces. She felt the weight of her people's hopes, but she did not falter. Marcus stepped forward, his uniform simple but commanding. "I have traveled many worlds and faced countless dangers," he said calmly. Princess Lyra's leadership has been tested not just in words but in action. She has faced threats with courage, inspired her people, and demonstrated intelligence and moral clarity. I stand by her not as a superior, but as a witness to her strength. The council members studied him carefully. A human soldier speaking with confidence, honesty, and authority was rare. Even the most hardened elders could not ignore the presence of someone who had proven himself not by domination, but by action, strategy, and courage. Lyra continued, her voice steady. "We have faced threats from rival factions, defended our palace, and maintained the trust of our people. My decisions are guided by courage, wisdom, and the duty to protect those who depend on me. The human soldier has only helped us see that true strength lies not in fear or power, but in integrity, intelligence, and action." Silence filled the hall. The council members whispered among themselves, clearly impressed, but some remained cautious. Eldar, Lyra's longtime advisor, stepped forward. "Your Highness, your rule has faced unusual circumstances, yet your decisions have been wise and courageous. You have shown leadership beyond your years. And Captain Marcus, his guidance has been invaluable." Lyra glanced at Marcus, who simply nodded. His presence alone had been a stabilizing force, inspiring confidence and calm. She realized again how much she had learned from him, not only about courage and strategy, but about leadership and responsibility. One of the council members, a tall alien with golden eyes, spoke next. "Princess Lyra, it is clear that your methods are unorthodox, but courage, intelligence, and moral clarity are qualities every leader should have. You have demonstrated them not only in theory but in action. Your people have thrived under your guidance, and the palace has remained secure." The murmurs of approval grew louder. Lyra felt a quiet pride swell inside her. She had expected doubt, fear, and criticism. Instead, she found understanding, respect, and recognition for her courage. She turned slightly to Marcus, their eyes meeting for a brief moment of shared acknowledgement. "Princess Lyra," the council elder finally said, "we recognize your strength, your wisdom, and your courage. Your leadership is not defined by tradition alone, but by your actions and the trust you have earned from your people. We approve your rule and commend your ability to protect and inspire." A wave of relief and triumph washed over Lyra. She had faced judgment, uncertainty, and political pressure, and emerged stronger. Yet more than the council's approval, she felt a deeper sense of accomplishment. She had learned that leadership was not only about her throne or her advisors, but about courage, integrity, and the ability to act wisely in the face of danger. The council departed, their presence leaving the palace filled with renewed calm. The citizens of Orvella praised their princess, celebrating her courage and wisdom. Guards saluted Marcus, recognizing his role in guiding them and defending the palace. Lyra walked through the gardens with Marcus at her side. The air was warm and the flowers glowed softly under the twin moons. The palace towers reflected the starlight, creating a serene and peaceful scene. "You have taught me much," Lyra said softly, her violet eyes reflecting moonlight. "Not only about leadership, but about courage, wisdom, and trust. I do not know what I would have done without you." Marcus smiled faintly. "You had the strength all along, Princess. I only helped you see it clearly. Leadership, courage, and integrity were always within you." Lyra felt her heart swell with admiration and something deeper, a quiet warmth she had never felt before. Marcus had entered her life as a soldier, a guest and a guide. But now he was more than that. He was a presence that inspired her, a companion in thought and courage, and a friend she could trust completely. The palace was quiet, the only sound the gentle trickle of water from the fountains. Lyra realized how much her perspective had changed. She had once believed that power, tradition, and fear were the sources of strength. Now she knew that courage, wisdom, and moral clarity were far more important, and that trust and companionship could make a leader truly strong. Marcus looked at her, his expression calm and steady. "The galaxy is vast and unpredictable, Princess. Challenges will come again, but with courage, intelligence, and integrity, you can face anything. And you are never alone." Lyra's violet eyes met his. She felt a profound gratitude and admiration. I will remember that," she said softly. "And I will lead with courage, not fear, with wisdom, not mere tradition, and with trust in those who stand beside me." The moons rose high, casting silver light across the palace gardens. Lyra and Marcus stood together, silent in shared understanding. The palace had survived battles, political challenges, and uncertainty. But more importantly, Lyra had grown, not only as a leader, but as a person capable of courage, wisdom, and compassion. In that moment, she realized something she could not deny. The human soldier had entered her life, faced trials with honor, and changed her world forever. Even her throne, the symbol of power and authority, seemed less important than the lessons she had learned and the bond she had formed with Marcus. Lyra turned to Marcus, a faint smile touching her lips. "The palace, my people, and even the council, they have all seen courage and wisdom. But I have seen something greater. I have seen a human who embodies strength, integrity, and honor. And I'm grateful." Marcus inclined his head. "And I am honored to serve, Princess. Not as a ruler, but as a companion in courage, strategy, and trust. Together, you and your people will thrive." The palace was quiet under the glow of the moons. Stars sparkled in the sky, reflecting the twin suns' light from earlier in the day. Lyra felt a sense of calm determination and quiet joy. Challenges would come again, rivals, political intrigue, and the responsibilities of leadership. But she knew that with courage, wisdom, and Marcus by her side, she could face anything. And as she looked at the human soldier standing beside her, Lyra realized the truth that had grown stronger with each passing day. The human soldier had entered her world, changed her perspective, and reminded her that courage, integrity, and trust were the greatest powers of all. Even her throne, once her world, could not compare to the strength and bond she had found with him. The palace glowed in the moonlight, a symbol not just of authority but of hope, courage, and the promise of a future shaped by wisdom, integrity, and partnership. Lyra and Marcus stood side by side, ready to face whatever the galaxy might bring. Together, they had proven that strength was more than tradition, more than power. It was courage, intelligence, and the bonds we forge along the way. And so, under the twin moons of Orvella, the human soldier and the alien princess began a new chapter. Not just for the palace, not just for the planet, but for the future they would face together.